We are all connected. So join me as I talk to like-minded people about topics that are appropriate to the current times we are living in. My name is Lerato Shabalala and this is Relevant. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Relevant with me, Lerato Shabalala. Today's conversation is going to be one of a fire conversation. I'm a history student and I am really enthused by this gentleman. I listened to him on a show with Aubrey called a section called Kwantu, and the conversation was amazing. So I was like, I need to speak to this accomplished gentleman. So I want to start off by thanking him and honoring me by coming to the show. Remember, you can go to our YouTube channel as well as the website leratoshabala.com, where you can see the visual thing on YouTube, but also you can find us on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts and Iona for the audio of this version, for those of you who want to listen in the car. I would like to take this moment, people of the Republic of South Africa, to introduce you to Zulumathabo Zulu, Dr. Zulu. Why am I saying it wrong? Mathabo, right? I am saying it right.
Yeah, Zulumathabo is one way.
Yes. So
Zulumathabo is one word.
Is his first name. Zulu is his second name.
Zulu is the last name.
He is a lexicographer, he's a research scientist, he's a shepherd boy, he's so accomplished that I could keep going and going. Dr. Zulu, welcome to Relevant.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to appear in your show. I feel very much honored by that. And also greetings to your audience, your viewers.
Thank you so very much. You are an intellectual historian. You have made it your business to tell the real history of our people. And I know that there's a term that it's called historiography, which is different from history. And you will elaborate on that as we have our very robust conversation. However, when I was reading up on your different articles, and really you are sensational in the way you speak about our people. And when I say our people, I don't mean Southern Africans. I mean African people. I need to say that for clarity. So what I wanted to start with, why I wanted to invite you to the show, is because this is Heritage Month in South Africa. A lot of people have different understandings of heritage, and the truth is that the truth of really where we come from has not been revealed to us. And so only now are we waking up. So before we get to heritage, I want to start with the country itself, South Africa. And you and I are going to be talking about names, the names of countries, the names of people, where we come from. And South Africa is one of only 2 countries on the continent that are geographically named. As you know, different countries, when they got independence, changed their names. Zaire became the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rhodesia became Zimbabwe, and we just became South Africa, right? Nothing actually changed to mark this very important thing. Dr. Zulu, I know that you in particular use the name Azania. I want to talk about why it is important to actually double click on the fact that our country is geographically named. There's no history. Can you talk about why that is important for us to acknowledge how that has messed us up and it is actually not good for our history?
So the name has implications. Africans take names very seriously. It also has spiritual implications. Now, in the case of South Africa, of course, the name South Africa, when you trace it, it was what is today, or what became known at some point in our history as Transvaal. You see, the Transvaal Republic, of Paul Kruger. Krugersdorp is named after Paul Kruger. That's why it's called Krugersdorp.
Exactly.
So Paul Kruger was a very important president of this Boer Republic. So it was known as ZAR, right? Which is a Dutch way to say Zuid-Afrikaans, Zuid-Afrika, you know, instead of saying South Africa, Zuid-Afrika, something like that. So then in brief, it becomes ZAR. So, and it was an independent country, actually. We had many independent countries within South Africa. How about that? So, so there was Orange Free State, that, which is the first one. The first one is Orange Free State.
Yes, yes.
You see, OVS it was. So here it was, Transvaal was ZAR, the other side was OVS. So anyways, when it happened, then of course, as you know, there was a Anglo-Boer War, that sort of situation. And then there were actually two Anglo-Boer Wars, but the one that everybody knows is the one that starts in 1899 until 1902. And then at the end of it, in 1902, of course, then the British, you know, take over.
Yes.
And then in about 1910, then there is this negotiation that goes on between the English and the Afrikaners. And they all agree to unite all the colonies. And then they decide to use the name of the ZAR and say, we shall call it Union of South Africa.
South Africa, yes.
So the name South Africa is actually a colonial name that used to refer.
And as far as I understand, Dr. Zulu, sorry to interrupt you, is that it's made up of Natal, KwaZulu-Natal.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, there was part of Natal that was part of this. Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
And for those of you who don't know, and I actually found this out when I was listening to Dr. Zulu's conversation with Aubrey, is that it's named. Natal means Christmas. Because Vasco da Gama discovered
yes
it
on a Christmas day.
Yes, so that's what it's named. So it's the Cape. I think it's the Val. How many? There were 4, as far as I remember.
Yeah. So you have the Cape.
Yeah.
You know, and then you had the Free State.
Yes, the Free
State. Yes, and then you had the Transvaal.
Yes.
There was actually another one also in Natal at some point. There was a Boer Republic at some point, and then they kind of united with the Transvaal one, you know, at some point. Yes. So, so now the decision was made, of course, in 1910 that they shall name all the unification of all the colonies South Africa in honor, because you see, there were a lot of grievances by the Dutch, by the Afrikaners about the end of the Boer War. You know, they still felt that, you know, the treaty was not fair to them. So the British, as a compromise, decided, okay, we'll name the country after you. You see that? Yes, and that's what happens. And remember that when that happens, African natives are excluded from there. Yes. They are not part of the equation.
Yes. I assume, Doctor, that what that did, though, is why so many of our families are run by the maternal as opposed to the paternal. Because not only did that happen, 10 million slaves were taken out of our continent, right?
Yeah.
And what that meant is that now,
and actually more than that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it means that now there are more women, because the men who were the strongest, who needed to help the Spanish and the Portuguese with the tobacco and the cotton and the sugarcane, left, and a lot of women had to take up.
For example, here's another example. A word like morena. You see?
Yes.
Morena is not a Sesotho word, actually.
Really?
And a lot of people get shocked when we tell them that. So the word morena comes from the Portuguese. Remember, the Portuguese are the first colonizers.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly. Yes, they're the first ones.
Yes.
So in Portuguese, so when they arrived here, they did not, because they were instructed, these people were on a mission, by the way, make no mistake. They were given a full instruction that when you arrive in that new country and you meet the people there, your first order of business is to find out their leaders. You must find out who their king is, right?
The concept of chiefs. I guess that's where it came from, right?
What's that?
The concept of finding the chief. Go speak to the
Yes,
chief.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they wanted, that's what they used to do. So now, when they come here, they found that our people always pointed them to Lhotla, you see, and they always talk about Hosi. But what happened at that time they came here, believe it or not, most of the royal leaders were actually females.
Wow.
Because now the word that is most commonly used by the Portuguese was La Reina. La Reina means a queen in Portuguese.
Wow.
La Reina. So now, Basotho now, when they certifies that, now they used to say Moreina, you know, because you see, Basotho don't use the word la, so they use mo instead of the la.
Yes.
It became Moreina, and then as time progressed, they dropped the yi, and then it became Morena. and that's where we are.
For me, what I want us to get into is, so both of us have a very interesting thing. My name is Lerato Shabalala Zulu, and you are Zulumathabo Zulu, and I think you're Sotho doctor, right?
Yes, yeah. My mother is Msotho.
Yeah,
my father is Zulu.
Yes. So I'm sure we often find ourselves in the same thing. We're like, and your name, but you speak this language. Lihle, you took a very sort of heartwarming stance with your children's names. You've got Utando, which is the Zulu version of my name. You've got Ulanga and Tagasa, which are incredibly affirming, beautiful names. And it's a really the same kind of question. Children could have been called Kaya, an easy to pronounce, to remember name, and not that Langa is hard to pronounce, or Tagasa. But I first want to start off with
Langa. Hey, Langa.
Yes, Langa. But I'm ladies.
Langa. But I want to start off with your name as well. I mean, even in South Africa, people would still call you Lihle.
Mm-hmm.
And now you go to America, and I can't even imagine the weird and wonderful ways your name was butchered. So so how have you dealt with your own name and naming your own children and adjusting to the fact that you're not at home, and here you could have something to say when somebody didn't know how to pronounce, your name, but what has it been like there?
Yeah, so being Lihle has always just been so challenging. Firstly, in South Africa, as you said, being called Lihle, and my nickname is Lish, and it's derived from Lihle, because my schoolmates couldn't pronounce my name, so I just grew into that. But coming here, interestingly enough, Americans are so keen to try and learn my name.
Yeah.
At least the ones that I've come across. I think Yoli and I are fortunate to be living in the Northeast, where people are more liberal, they're more willing to learn about other cultures. They want to. So the people I've come across have really, really wanted to learn how to say my name. They really try. But I'm more known as Lish. And then with my children, I just had to take over from where my mother left off. My mother gave us, all three of her daughters, Zulu names. Both first and middle names are with Zulu. And it was so important for her to do that. And when it came to naming my children, it was natural for me to give them amagama that have meaning. Tando Lwethu. Her middle name is Makosazana. She's named after her paternal grandmother, who passed away when she was 2 years old. And then my middle son is Langaletu Abdullah Andani. Langaletu obviously being our sunshine, and he really, really lives up to that. He's a bubbly, funny, really, really loving little boy. And obviously he grew our family. My mother named him Andani. And then Tagasa Nguni. My sister named him Tagasa. So my husband's name is Leith. So we had Leith and Lihle and Langa. And we had Tando, who stuck out the door with her tea. And she was like, you are not naming this other child, this third child, another L. So we had to think of a name starting with T. And I reached out, obviously, to family. I reached out to my mother and my sister. And my sister was writing exams and she was praying, and she was like, the accounting. And Tagasa means jabula, be happy. But you know, in that deeper Zulu, yokhuleka. And it just hit her while she was praying. And it's also so, you know, poetic and spiritual that's how she came up with the name while she was praying. And she messaged me immediately and she was like, oh my gosh, I have a name for the baby. And I had never heard that name.
Mom, I've never heard that.
Yeah. You know, and I was so moved. And it was during a time when I was also discovering a lot about our Nguni heritage and our Nguni spirituality. So it was fitting for me to also name him Nguni, you know, whether he likes it or not. So, but yeah, even though amagama, they are not as difficult to pronounce as Lihle. You know, Tando has been called Tando, Tando, and she stands firm in correcting people who to know it's Tando.
Yeah,
you know,
good.
I'm not even asking you to try and pronounce the full Tandolwe, to just get Tando right.
Exactly.
And Ulanga has been called Langa, and he was okay with it, but I had to explain to him, no, that is not your name. Your name is Langa, and there's a different definition to Langa. Means something else. It means to hang, and that is not who you are. No. You are Langa. You are our sunshine. You are bright as the day. And Tagasa has been called all sorts of things as well. But you know, I emphasize to them, Uguti, these are your names. And for me, it's all about Uguti, when the settlers came and took everything from us. Mm-hmm. They took our land, they took our livestock, they took our dignity. All we had were our names. This is why amagametu are so important, and this is why we get so offended and upset when they are butchered. Yeah. So I explained this to the children, Nuguti. Your name has to be pronounced correctly. Your name has meaning. If it's mispronounced, it loses its meaning.
And I think you're so right. So how do you keep your heritage alive? How do the children respond to the language? I remember Lihle got saying to Lihle Ulanga. I have another else. This is the problem. Ulanga, who's my godson, who I haven't seen in a long time because of life. You know, at the early stages, he understood Mutsuguye was Allah. Buga, you know, there's certain things that he understood. Are they open to it? Because I know Yoli's older brother, who now lives here, struggled at the beginning to just accept the language and accept his name and where he was. So I guess my question to both of you is, how do you keep your heritage alive and your language alive and your history alive when you are not at home? So yeah,
it's not easy to speak isiZulu 100% with them. I tried, and I know so many other immigrants from other cultures, like Russians, Mexicans who just speak one way in language yabo at home. And I tried that because I was so determined for them to learn how to speak isiZulu. But what I realized was that as South Africans, as Black South Africans, we don't speak 100% our vernacular. We see a mix. So that's why I found it so difficult for me ukuthi ngikhulume nabo 100% Zulu all the time. I could have done that and Leith could have spoken to them in English. That's what other families do. But I wasn't able to do that, and I've just stopped being hard on myself.
Yeah.
They know a lot of isiZulu. When I speak to them, they understand. Speaking back to me, that's another story. Bayawazi amagama nama commands and instructions. When I say to them, wazala, suka lapho, you know, typical immigrant mother, ngithetha ngesiZulu. And they will understand me. When I'm angry, hey, wenzani lapho? They know.
Yeah, most definitely.
Bayaz. And yeah. And also we have Zulu books. We have Abogcina Mhlophe here that friends and family have been kind enough to bring us. And I read to them in Zulu. And we watch a lot of documentaries. Like last weekend, Leith found a documentary about early African civilizations. So even he plays a role in doing those things. I envy Yoli being in Brooklyn among all of that culture and being able to immerse your boys in all those activities. And I'm now challenged to try and do that. But we haven't done that. We've just tried and teach them about our culture in the home. I teach them about my own family history. During lockdown, my family, my maternal family, we started a family WhatsApp group.
Yeah. And
we started learning about our history way back to the original Zlomo, who turns out, by the way, was Inkos. So hello, I'm a princess. So, you know, learning all of this, finding out all of this history about our family. My grandfather, my maternal grandfather wrote a book.
Oh.
He wrote a memoir, and I've been reading it and sharing those stories about his life with them. He was a very prominent businessman, but he started out working in Makishi, a Morningside in Durban. And I was telling Yolanda this, and we have this young white boy who mows our lawn, a high school kid who has a business mowing people's lawn. And I was saying, you know, how my grandfather would feel seeing how everything has turned. Here's one of his grandchildren now living in America and has a white child doing what he used to do as a youngster, you know, and how that would affect him knowing all his hard work has paid off. So I try to share those kinds of stories about our family, not just the broader cultural story, but also our family story, just to keep them in the loop about where we come from in our history.
That's really beautiful. That's just so beautiful. I mean, having found yourself, you are now have been in America longer than you were in South Africa. Have you let go of the trying to be the Xhosa mama, or are you just maybe focusing on more us as African people than the Xhosa-ness and the Zulu-ness of where you come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think a long time ago I am just myself, whether that is momentarily Xhosa mom or Zulu mom, or I'm just Yoli, and I am a child of the earth, and my identity is child of the earth. Like I said, I don't really function in, I'm a Xhosa mom or I'm a Zulu mom. you know, I sort of have to accept that my experience is a global experience, and I think for a long time I tried to be, you know, people use authenticity as currency. You know? At home, it's like, oh, you haven't lived in Africa for a long time. You're not African anymore, and that's currency for them, right? It's currency for them to feel important. Now I can decide who's African and who isn't African, and it's like, well, you know what? You do you. Mina, I'm gonna do me, and me is very happy. And I think growing up in exile really taught me how to value a South African experience and culture, because I understood how beautiful our culture was or is, sorry. And so for me, I carry that with me wherever I go. And I almost feel like having moved back home when to go to university really saved my life. I don't know who I would have been if I had stayed in America all my life. Because I think when going home really, I was re-engaged with my culture in a real way. Before that, it was like trips to coming home once in a while and coming to visit people. But then coming and living back in South Africa on the soil, it was like, it really sort of crystallized the beauty of my culture. And I think for me, I've taken on, I wasn't hired by anyone, but the ambassador is South Africa, okay?
Yeah.
Now, wherever I go, it's South African. I'm here to represent.
Yes.
Now I just need my coin to match that representation.
Girl.
But also I'm laughing at Lihle because when she says, hey, wazala, you know, my kids, when they make fun of me, they say, ha, because I'm always like, they know when I'm angry, I go, ha. But they now, because when they can't pronounce it, they'll say, ha, nomengwesu. And I'm like, what is nomengwesu? I just wonder what I had been saying in that time. But you know, it's the thing about your heritage is that you can't escape your heritage, no matter where you go, where you are in life, and it finds you. And I think some of us, like Lihle and myself, we make a point to honor it, because it is one of the most dynamic and beautiful heritages that anyone can have. Why would I ever want to leave this behind? Yeah. You know, it's what makes us unique. It's what makes us interesting. We have such an interesting culture. It's like, and history and language. You know, every time I meet someone, and you know, I am also a singer. Every time I meet someone, they're like, "Oh, do the click song." I'm like, "Oh, not click song," but you know what I mean? Like, it's such a beautiful language and culture and experience. I would never leave that behind. And so I carry that with me, and I make sure that the children are fully ingrained in it. I've caught Abo Meli saying, when people ask them, oh, so where are you from? And they're like, oh, we're from South Africa. I'm like, well, I mean, you're born in America, but you know, I let it be, you know, that's what they want to identify with. And then for them to have the memory of home be so beautiful. We would come home maybe every 2 years before all of this happened, and they would spend time with their cousins. And so for them, South Africa is a place of freedom and family and just being at ease, because a lot of times you don't get to be at ease when you live in New York City, because it's such a fast-paced place. That I remember last time we came home, Umeli left his shoes at my sister's house and just spent most of the holiday with no shoes, just kind of walking around barefoot. And he was just like, I've never felt this kind of freedom. And you can only get that ekaya, you know? And I think that's what we carry with us wherever we go.
Oh man, and
yeah.
I'm missing you guys. I miss having you here. So
yeah.
My last question then is, did we see Black is King? What do we see? Do we love it?
Snap thoughts, Chobi. Snap thoughts.
Yes.
Well, I loved it. I personally, I mean, there were moments where I thought it was very cheesy, but it's Disney. Eh? So it's like, there were moments where I was like, okay, B, like it's laying it on a little thick, like, you know, in the beginning, I thought that was a lot. But I think the showing an Africa that's not necessarily Wakanda is really important, because I think the shots of Joburg and Lagos and Accra were really important, because people got to see that the culture is dynamic. It keeps changing, we're moving and morphing. And And I love that she worked with African artists and dancers and everything to make sure that the work was not just her only bringing in American talent. It was also working with African talent, you know?
Exactly.
And the songs, woo, some of the, I like, babes, what are your 2 songs? I love Already and,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I think it's Already, really, it's
Already.
Already.
Find Your Way Home is.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I
Find
love
Your Way Home.
Yeah.
And of course, Bigger, because I'm having to allow myself to understand that, you know, it's about knowing that there's a bigger story that I'm here for, you know, a bigger thing that I'm here for. So, yeah, Find Your Way and Mood Forever. I mean, your Mood Forever.
Oh, yeah.
Is
Yeah.
everything. And Lihle, did you like it? What did you think?
I did. Everything that Yolanda said, I really loved that it was, you know, it wasn't fictional. It was real. It was everything that that Africa is, and people who have never been there. I know a lot of African Americans have always wanted to go, but you know, you don't see those images on American TV, even on to this day. So for somebody like her who has that platform to show that reality, it's not just, you know, mud huts and, you know, lions roaming around only, like you know, Taylor Swift and her video. You know, we are civilized, you know, and we are talented, and she showcased African talent that meant the world to me.
People we know,
People we know, you know, watching it, it's like when you watch the South African movies on Netflix, and you see all of these places that you know, and you hear your language being spoken. Nothing moves you more than that, and she managed to do that.
She really did, and I want to say I liked it because she could have shot it in a studio in LA and used some actors, you know, but what she did is she wanted to show what it is like for us to live as Africans, and wanted to show us in a beautiful way, and I think she achieved that. And I think we're going to see more of that coming on. You know what I mean? I think we're going to see more people coming here. I can't wait till this madness is done, so you can come home and I can come to New York, and you can shop and, you know, get all these things.
Yes.
Stay healthy. Nyan Misa, Nyan Love.
Love you.
Oh, I miss you.
Big time.
I can't wait to see you, my friends. Thanks for honoring me. Thanks for honoring this time. And whatever you did to get the children away from you for this hour. Big ups to you. I love you, my friend.
What a mission.
I know.
We love you. Thank you.
Love
Thank you
you
so much for this conversation.
Thank you. I want to talk about the Bantu people, because that's where we come from, right? I mean, I think it'll be a helpful way for people understanding why we had to get Shaka Zulu Day on as an important public holiday in 1995. But you need to get there by saying who are our people, Abantu, the Bantu people.
Abantu.
And Bantu people are not just here. Bantu people are all over Africa. You hear it in our languages. Swahili is very much like isiZulu, Umlungu in Swahili, Umzungu. So the Bantu people were a spiritual, amazing, ethereal people. And I think our history just has been whittled down. Can we talk about Abantu, the Bantu people, where we come from, where our people come from?
Our people coming down this way, and what's interesting also, the name Abantu, which means, of course, Ntu means really the spirit, right? You know, the spirit, Mutu, even in Sesotho, Tu is a spirit.
Yes.
Anything that has the Tu, you know.
Yes.
Yeah, is a spirit. Tokolosi, Tu, spirit. Situzela, Tu is a spirit. Even plants, right? You've got a certain plant called Tula, for example.
Right.
And it has the Tu. This particular plant, you can actually talk to it. You know, you can talk to it. you know.
Yes.
It has the spirit, exactly.
Yes.
So according to our people, the spirit is all in nature. Now, of course, when you trace the history of the Basotho, you find that, you know, they come from the Batswaning, actually, the Basotho, because
Yes.
the founder of the Basotho was a king called Taban. Taban was a Mkhatla.
Ah, Bahag.
Mkhatla, exactly. You see, and then he had many wives, but one of his wives, I think that was a second wife, called Matulare. That's where now the Basotho nations are born from that, you know. So for example, there was a son called Diale, he's a firstborn, and Diale ki mo ho tswang Bapedi teng.
Okay.
Diale, yes.
Wow.
And then you've got Kgetsi. Kgetsi, that's where Magolokwe comes from, the people with names, with surnames of Moloi, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, and there are different names. It can be Moloi, it can be Mahase. They're still Kibo Moloi Batubao, and then it can, and so forth. And then there's one called Puti. Puti also, they are related. Puti Libonaba Puti. I'm sure you've heard
Yes.
Puti.
Yes.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And then we've got Tlokwa, but Tlokwa also come from there as well, and Basia. So there were 5 nations, you see.
Wow.
And you know, names have meanings, right? Because Kgetsi, who is the progenitor of Bomuloi Magolokwe, if you listen to his Takazelo Zake, they say something like, ke le kgolokwe ke le kotswana la tlhaba kgoka le mao la isa morena kgorong la re bona morena ke tlhabile ya bona and a utlwe ba re, you know, ke motho wa Kgetsi Sedutlamajwe. Now that's quite interesting. Kgetsi is the progenitor. Sedutlamajwe are the divination bones, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was a Msotho doctor, this person.
Yes.
You see, he was a Nyanga.
Yes.
So, and he was very good in divination as well. But what's interesting, his son is called Moloi. That's interesting fact.
Yes.
And the word Moloi means a chemist. It doesn't mean what it means today. Moloi means a chemist. Yeah. So he was a doctor who specialized in chemistry, you see. Basotho still use the word. For example, when the Basotho make umqombothi, you know, and then they have to let it brew, they use the word huloya.
Basically,
so
the things, everything must mix. It must come together.
Exactly, because huloya means to change the molecular action. That's what that means. Huloya, to change the molecular action. So these were great healers, doctors, chemists, and so forth. Yes. So and that's why the people still carry the name Moloi today.
What's interesting to me is how the names have been changed and busted, yes, as it were. I mean, even Abe Zulu, you know, Zulu is the heavens, you know, and I think like,
yes, exactly.
You know, and I think our history as people is very spiritual.
Yes.
Very, very spiritual, down to the name.
Very spiritual.
You know, and unfortunately, after the Romans gave us Christianity and they told us about the white God and the white Jesus and the white angels, which I go, everybody who knows me knows I just don't understand that concept. Is that taking away and stripping us away from that?
Yes.
From the thing that is very normal to us, that is very normal. They didn't need us to go to a church and get a Bible and follow a set of rules and you will be smited if you are not. But one that says you are a child of the universe, of the spirit. Why was that separation so important in even how we got named? I mean, there's a point Holy Lihle had to be called Nelson because it made it easier for other people. Why was it so important to take away our identification with spirit, our identification with greatness and where we come from, which is the great source, the great power, our understanding of metaphysicals, how the moon, the sun, everything is connected to who we are? Why was that important to to take that away from us? I don't understand.
They became threatened when they arrived here and noticed that we had a sophisticated knowledge of the cosmos, knowledge of culture, knowledge of medicine. So to separate us from that knowledge was very critical for them, particularly cultural knowledge. They need to break that link because culture controls the mind. I'm going to tell you something. Culture is very powerful in terms of the mind. Culture actually has got more access to the mind than psychology does. I mean, psychology is a science, it's a discipline that deals with the mind, right?
Yes, yes.
But it doesn't have the same access to the mind as the culture. I'll give you a very trivial example. You know, a hip hop artist, he appears in front of a crowd. He says, say ho, ho. Everybody says ho, ho, but nobody knows why. That is power.
Yes,
that,
yes.
Because he's a cultural scholar.
Exactly.
He's a cultural philosopher, right? He's using the cultural tools to access the mind.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Which is why hip hop culture can transcends
exactly.
Across America to come to South Africa,
yes.
Because it is about the psychological change. Because you know, when somebody says hip hop hooray, you immediately think of hip hop.
They needed to divorce us from the culture because the culture is the glue that keeps us together. And the culture also controls the mind. If you wanna reach the heart of a person, you can reach it culturally.
When you made the example of hip hop and culture, I don't know if you know this, Doctor, but now when a important moment happens in hip hop, people say it's for the culture.
It's for the, oh, look at that. That's interesting.
Like, that's really interesting. That's the way you went, because everybody said for the culture. And
yes,
that's exactly what you refer to. I'm looking forward to more conversations with you in future.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to the institution that will be opening.
Yes.
You are on social media. I believe you're on Twitter. If people.
Yes, I'm on social media. Yes, I'm on Twitter. I think it's Zulumathabo Zulu on Twitter.
Yes.
Zulumathabo Zulu. Yes.
You will not regret listening to this man, following him. He has been really, really brought to us by the gods. Dr. Zulumathabo Zulu, you are a gift to our people. Long may your life be preserved so that the history of our people is told by the people themselves for the people. I thank you for honoring me, for honoring us.
Thank you.
You are a gift to the world and society.
Thank you. Siyabonga. Siyathokoza makhosi.
Thank you so much for a great chat.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.